We're here at the INSEAD Leadership Summit Middle East, speaking with INSEAD Economics Professor Antonio Fatas. Professor, welcome to INSEAD Knowledge.
Thank you.
As the world's economy changes over the next 5 to 10 years, where do you see the position of the Middle East in general and the UAE in particular?
Obviously, we all tend to associate Middle East economies with oil, with natural resources. These are economies that have been doing extremely well, partly because the price of oil has been very high relative to historical standards. And we expect the same trend to continue over the next years. If the world economy continues growing, if emerging markets continue growing, we're going to see the same demand for energy. So it is very likely that the Middle East will benefit, at least those countries that produce oil, from that demand coming from those markets.
You're talking about oil a lot. The UAE itself is looking at the diversification of its economy. How important is this transformation in the UAE economy to how it's going to be seen by the rest of the world? From
an economic point of view, diversification is good. We know that in the past, countries with natural resources sometimes have not done very well, even when the price of those natural resources was going up. There are many countries out there in the world, whether it's Nigeria, whether it's Venezuela, that have traditionally relied on natural resources excessively and at the cost of the rest of the economy. Now, having said that, if one sector that is doing very well, like the sector that is related to oil, is a sector that is doing great, you don't get hurt if that sector is relevant. So diversification is good to protect yourself from the risk that that sector goes down. But as long as that sector keeps being strong, it might be that even without diversification, we see some of these economies doing very well.
So do you see a lot more political transformation, whether peacefully or by protest?
I mean, I think we're not done. We're not in a situation that is stable. I don't see the current situation to be stable in many countries, and we know very well from the last month that if one country is unstable, other countries are unstable by definition.
And how important then is strong leadership to be able to take your country through this time of change and put it in a strong position at the end?
We have lots of examples of countries that have transformed themselves through strong political leaders. We have countries that have done the opposite, that have had great opportunities ahead of them, and then they have been destroyed by lack of political leadership. So I think there's no doubt that in an environment where you need transformation, political leadership is more important than ever.
And business leadership, is this a time too for strong business leaders?
Sure, it comes with it. Again, governments don't change a country without businesses. All the countries that we know around the world, businesses and the private sector is the most important component of the economy. The government by itself cannot do it.
And how important is private enterprise to help smaller countries in particular, like Emirates, like Abu Dhabi, to help them strengthen and make the successful transformation?
In most countries that are rich are countries where private enterprises dominate the economy, dominate economic forces, dominate growth, dominate technology, everything. Now when you're talking about the UAE, it's a country that is partly related or is partly influenced by obviously the oil sector, which the oil sector happens to be always very close to the state and the government, both in the UAE but also in other countries. So it's a slightly different case. But again, if the moment we start thinking about diversification and the rest of the economy, the other sectors, I think private enterprises will have to dominate the future growth of this region.
What other challenges do you think Abu Dhabi will be facing to its successful diversification?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is the struggle that any country that has natural resources will always have between going for something that works in the short term, which is a natural resource that is going to be in very high demand, and making sure that you diversify things. And not just from a strategic point of view. It's very easy for the government to draw a plan that says we're going to go into other sectors. But it has to be also felt by the individuals when they decide what type of education do I get? What do I want my career to be? And I think the pressure that comes sometimes in economies that rely or have relied in the past in natural resources is finding that balance. And that's something that applies to the UAE, but it applies to many other countries that have natural resources as one of the sources of income.
As you make your economic forecasts for the region, what figure are you putting on the oil price and why?
I mean, that's a very difficult forecast to make. I think it seems to be reasonable to think about an oil price which is going to be somewhere around $100. But obviously there's a big range of possibilities here. We can see the world economy turning into a recession tomorrow. And then probably the price of oil will go down significantly, or we can see some political events in the Middle East, leading to a lot of uncertainty and the price of oil going much, much higher than 100. But I think it seems to be reasonable given the past and given some of the conditions of the market that somewhere around $100 is something that we're going to see for the next years.
And how long are you stretching that out for? Is that like a 5-10 year forecast?
I think anyone who goes beyond 5-10 years is taking a lot of risk, because I think this is a market that is going to change dramatically. We're going to see technology coming into the energy market, and try to understand how different technologies will develop in this market over more than a decade. I think it is very difficult to do.
Antonio, thank you for being with us at INSEAD Knowledge.
Yeah, thank you.